The foldable iPhone has been rumored for years, but now the whispers are getting louder, and the name most often attached to Apple's first folding phone is iPhone Ultra. If the latest reports are accurate, Apple's first foldable could be real, it could be announced alongside the iPhone 18 Pro, and it could also be facing the biggest obstacle Apple hates to talk about publicly: manufacturing problems that may push availability back and keep supply extremely limited. So what's actually happening behind the scenes? Why is the iPhone Ultra reportedly so difficult to build? And could Samsung's Galaxy Z Fold 8 end up benefiting from Apple's slow rollout? Let's break down the newest leak, what it claims, and what it could mean for anyone waiting to buy Apple's first foldable. According to a recent report, Apple's foldable iPhone Ultra may launch in a very unusual way. Instead of a typical global rollout where you can pre-order in multiple countries on day one, the report suggests a phased release strategy. The iPhone Ultra would supposedly go on sale in limited quantities in the United States first, and only later expand to other regions in waves, meaning major markets outside the US could be waiting months, and it's not just a slow rollout because Apple wants to build hype. The report's core claim is far more serious. Apple is allegedly dealing with supply issues, testing problems, and uncertainty around pricing. Three things that can quickly derail a major hardware launch, especially one as complex as a foldable smartphone. One of the most eye-catching parts of the leak is the suggestion that Apple might announce the iPhone Ultra without announcing the price at the same time. If that sounds unbelievable, think about what that would imply. Apple may not have enough confidence in component availability and final production cost to lock a global price when it steps onto the stage. And if Apple can't confidently price it, that usually means Apple can't confidently build it at scale. The report also points to information allegedly coming from a major Chinese component maker, indicating Apple has run into snags across the pipeline: parts supply, production testing, and final pricing. The idea here is that even if Apple has engineering prototypes and early production units, the company might still be struggling to get consistent, mass-producible results. In plain terms, Apple may have foldable iPhone units that technically exist, but can't be produced reliably enough to satisfy Apple's quality standards or Apple's volume targets, and this is where the leak gets more specific. The iPhone Ultra's biggest headaches are reportedly tied to the two most important parts of any foldable phone: the hinge and the foldable display. Foldables live or die by their hinge design. The hinge controls how the device opens and closes, how it feels in the hand, how much stress hits the inner screen over time, and whether the phone stays durable after thousands of folds. If a hinge is slightly off, tolerances, materials, alignment, long-term wear, you can end up with creaking, looseness, uneven folding pressure, or even damage that appears months after purchase. On top of that, the foldable display is still one of the hardest components in consumer electronics. It must be thin, flexible, bright, color accurate, tough enough to withstand constant movement, and consistent enough that Apple can sell millions without widespread panel variation. Even for companies that have been shipping foldables for years, inner display issues are always a risk. The leak claims Apple encountered more problems than expected during production verification tests, and that current engineering solutions aren't fully addressing the flaws. If accurate, that's a big deal, because it suggests the issues aren't just, "we need more time to ramp up." It suggests that Apple may still be chasing a reliable, repeatable build, one that meets durability expectations before the phone reaches real customers. Now add timing. Mass production was reportedly planned for June, then slipped to August and then slipped again. It's also claimed that Foxconn, Apple's key manufacturing partner, was still adjusting mass production plans as late as July, and that engineering validation could push the timeline back even further. If you've followed Apple launches, you know Apple can handle shortages, but foldables introduce a completely different kind of risk. If durability questions show up early, the internet doesn't forgive you, and returns can get ugly fast. Apple has built a reputation on tight hardware quality control, and a foldable iPhone would be under a microscope from day one. And it's not only hinges and screens. The report mentions a chip crunch, adding uncertainty. When key chips or related components are constrained, it doesn't just limit supply, it affects cost. And when cost is volatile, pricing becomes risky. Apple doesn't like pricing surprises, especially for a brand new Ultra category where buyers already expect premium pricing. Which brings us to the number everyone wants. How much could the foldable iPhone Ultra cost? There's no confirmed price, but the report suggests the iPhone Ultra could cost significantly more than the competition in some regions. In Australia, for example, the device could be around $700 AUD, more than a base Galaxy Z Fold 8 model. And in broader terms, it's hinted the iPhone Ultra could cross the $2,300 mark in the US, well above the $1,900 starting price many associate with Samsung's Fold lineup. If those estimates are even close, Apple wouldn't just be entering the foldable market, it would be entering as the most expensive mainstream foldable option, at least at launch. That raises a huge question. If the iPhone Ultra is late, limited, and ultra expensive, does it still dominate the conversation the way iPhones usually do? Because while Apple is allegedly wrestling with production and validation, Samsung isn't waiting. The Galaxy Z Fold 8 has already been released. It's already in the hands of reviewers and buyers, and reports suggest demand is strong, enough that Samsung may increase production by up to 1 million additional. This is the first mover advantage. Problem: Apple typically doesn't rush into new categories first. Apple waits, watches, then arrives with a polished version that feels inevitable. That strategy worked with smartwatches, earbuds, and tablets. But foldables are different because the market has already had multiple generations to mature, especially Samsung's book-style fold devices. If Apple's iPhone Ultra arrives with supply constraints and delays, buyers who are platform agnostic, meaning they can switch between iOS and Android, may decide not to wait. They may just buy the Galaxy Z Fold 8 now, enjoy the foldable experience immediately, and move on. And even for people who prefer iOS, a long delay creates another issue: momentum. When a product is teased but hard to buy, excitement can shift into frustration. People stop waiting. People spend money elsewhere. And a segment of potential customers who would have upgraded the moment it drops may end up upgrading to a different device in the meantime. Of course, it's important to keep perspective. Apple has done staggered launches before. The iPhone X had supply constraints. Vision Pro rolled out in phases. Apple is not afraid of limited availability, especially when the product is complex. But the difference here is what the report implies. The iPhone Ultra's delays may not be a simple ramp issue. They may be the result of unresolved engineering and reliability challenges, particularly around the Hinge and folding display, at a time when Apple would normally be finalizing everything. And if you're Apple, a foldable iPhone can't just be good. It has to be the foldable that feels like it was worth waiting for. So here's what this leak paints as the most likely scenario. Apple still announces the iPhone Ultra, likely alongside the iPhone 18 Pro in the US, but doesn't fully commit to immediate worldwide availability. The US gets limited quantities first. Other regions, potentially including high-priority markets like China, follow later, in phases depending on supply. Pricing may remain uncertain until Apple has clearer cost stability, especially if component availability continues to shift. And if that's the plan, it's going to be one of the most unusual iPhone launches we've ever seen, because for once, Apple may have the product story ready before it has the production story solved. Now, if you're considering waiting for the foldable iPhone Ultra, the practical question becomes simple. How much delay are you willing to tolerate, and how much are you willing to pay? If Apple's foldable ends up landing closer to $2,300 with limited supply, it won't be competing only with the Galaxy Z Fold 8. It will also be competing with the idea that you could buy a premium slab iPhone, plus a tablet, or even an iPad mini, and still potentially spend less while getting Apple's most proven hardware.